What is up, everybody? This is Couz coming at you here. I know it's late. It's 10:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and I'm just getting home. I'm still tired. I haven't even had a shower yet. I stink. Been sweating all day. Been a long day, needless to say. Uh, like I said, just got back from the game in Morgantown, and I live 3.5 hours away. So, uh, been a long one. What's up, Jonathan Lewis? Thanks for hopping in, brother. And also, my mouth's dry, so I'm gonna be drinking water during the show. But anyway, again, been a long day. For those of you who are watching on X, thank you. I recommend once the show's over, you go over, check out my YouTube channel, check out the shows I've done prior to this. But any of you who want to leave a comment, whether you're on X, YouTube, whatever, feel free to drop them in this chat box. I'm sure there'll be a lot of Penn State fans probably coming in here, which is cool too. It is what it is. But anyway, before we get started, before I give you my thoughts on the game, let me give a quick shout out to my sponsor, the one who helps me pay the bills around here. Since 1931, the attorneys at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident, are fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. All right. Thank you for being patient and letting me pay the bills and supporting my friends over at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner. Yeah, tough day. Did not expect West Virginia to win. I didn't expect West Virginia to win the game, but I thought they would at least be competitive and compete. You know, I did videos comparing the rosters. I thought West Virginia was talented enough to stack up with Penn State. Like I said, didn't think we'd win, but I thought it would at least be competitive. Man alive. Wasn't even close. Definitely one of the worst games I've seen in person. The offense looked bad. The defense looked bad. Special teams, I guess, looked okay, but, I mean, there really wasn't much they could do. The coaching was bad, in my opinion. The officiating was bad on both sides, which I'll get to later. I'll get to in a minute. Neal Brown had a lot to say about the officiating in his post-game presser, which I'm going to react to. But, man, I did not expect this team to come out, you know, all off season, or at least the last few weeks. Us West Virginia fans were excited. We felt really good about this team. Felt really good about the pieces we had returning. And for whatever reason, West Virginia came out with less energy than Penn State did. It's like they were playing tight or something. I don't know how to explain it. It just seems like they were flat. Flat's a great word, Dana Saunders. That's the perfect word. They were flat, unprepared in Penn State. And here's what I've been thinking about this all the way home. And, you know, there was you're right, Johnny, recruiting matters. But there you know, we had all the buildup. We had the Pat McAfee show in Morgantown. You know, the fan base has been on Twitter talking trash to Penn State fans, you know, which is cool. That's part of college football, right? As long as it's respectful. Thanks to Houston Cougars Germany for being a 6-month member. All this buildup, all this hype, you know, the players said they were ready. The coaching staff said they were ready. They were very confident. Even took a few little jabs at Penn State. You know, some of the players did, which is cool. You know, little bulletin board material, whatever. They made it a big deal. They made the game a big deal. And I got to thinking about it on the way home. Maybe they shouldn't have made it such a big deal. I remember hearing Bob Huggins say in interviews before when talking about court storming, he said, no, we don't need to storm the court here. We need to act like we've been there before because we have. And maybe that's where the West Virginia football program needs to get back to. Maybe the West Virginia football program needs to stop acting like we should take a back seat to anybody else. Start acting like they've been there before. The problem is this staff and these players haven't. But they've got to get to that point so that when next time they play a top 10 team, maybe it won't be such a big deal and they can treat it like a game, like a usual game. That's what Penn State did. Penn State treated it just like another game. They treated it like a business trip. West Virginia acted like it was, and I'm not saying the players were doing this, but we acted like it was the biggest game in the school's history. So they automatically put their opponent on a pedestal before the game ever started. And I say they, meaning we as a fan base. Maybe the program did the same. I don't know. But, after thinking about this on the 3.5-hour ride home, I was thinking, man, maybe there was just too much emphasis put on this game. I mean, a lot of that was to sell tickets and get the fans excited. I get it. But I think the players may have bought into their own hype a little bit, into the hype of the game, and maybe they came out a little uptight. Coach Brown even mentioned his post-game presser. Whatever anxiousness there was, any nervousness there was or whatever, I didn't see it coming. And it shouldn't have happened because it's a veteran team. A lot of seniors on the team, a lot of juniors on the team, a lot of guys who have played a lot of football. They shouldn't be nervous. They played the same team last year at their place and played it even better than they did tonight or today. So it's not an excuse, but I think mentally, for whatever reason, Penn State came into the game with a better mindset, a better approach to the game than what West Virginia did. And at the end of the day, in my opinion, that falls on the coaching staff. Now, look, I know a lot of people, I've already seen the Fire Neal Brown stuff come out, which is absolutely premature to me. I'm not on here to call for anybody's job. Did Neal Brown and his staff coach a good game tonight? I don't think so. I don't think they did. I think they made a lot of mistakes. Neal Brown should have kicked a field goal there in the first half when there was a couple different times, actually, I felt like he should have kicked a field goal. When you're playing a team that's, is more talented than you have a chance to get points, you take the points, in my opinion. Number one. Number two, should have been playing a prevent defense or at least a zone defense there at the end of the first half to prevent that last touchdown in the first half. Number three, in the second half, when you're down 15 points, why do you go for two? Whether you're down 13 or 14, it doesn't matter. Kick the extra point, man. Obviously, he had the two bad snaps or the mishandled snaps, whatever you want to call it, on the first two of the first offensive plays from scrimmage. Uncharacteristic mistakes. Look like guys who hadn't played together before, to be honest with you, and we know that's not the case. Now, Garrett said in a post-game presser, it was the first game with Brandon at center. It's actually not. Y'all played together in the bowl game, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't they? Didn't Garrett and Brandon play together in the bowl game? They've been working on it all season, these snaps. The defense looked confused at times. The one long touchdown run by Nick Singleton, I knew it was coming. I'm sitting there in the stands watching. I see Sean Martin trying to get the defensive lineman to move, and they had to shift and move, and they weren't in position by the time the ball snapped. They were confused. Why did the coaching staff not call a timeout when they saw that? Andy Kotelnicki once again had their number tonight. He outsmarted them. He outcoached them. James Franklin outcoached Neal Brown. Penn State was like the bully that comes into the schoolyard, punches you in the mouth, takes your lunch money, and there ain't a darn thing you can do about it. That is what happened tonight in Morgantown. All of us West Virginia fans, we got online, we talked our friendly trash talk, our banter, which is cool. It's part of the game, right? But our team didn't back it up. They could have at least made it competitive. Again, I didn't expect West Virginia to win the game, but they got absolutely dominated. They got manhandled. So I have a lot of questions. My first question is, and I hate to say this, but the first question I had in my mind was, can West Virginia play with the quote-unquote big boys anymore? Can they play with the Penn States, the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Georgias? Can they play with the Oklahomas and the Texases of the world? Those are thoughts that go through my mind when I see this stuff happen. Because last year, the one game West Virginia played against a really, really good team, against Oklahoma, they got manhandled just like this. They did. They got manhandled. So Neal Brown, it's my understanding he has yet to beat a team. I know he's beaten one or two ranked teams, but I think both were ranked in the 20s maybe. I don't remember exactly, but anytime he and his staff and his teams have played a really high-ranked opponent, they get absolutely manhandled. So it's hard not to think, can West Virginia still play with those teams? But then I go back in my mind to the days of Don Neyland and Rich Rodriguez, and even a couple years under Dana Holgorsen, when West Virginia punched above their weight class. West Virginia has always punched above their weight class. Why can't they do it now? There's no reason they can't do it now, is there? Is there a reason that West Virginia still can't punch above their weight class? When they have less 4- and 5-star recruits than everybody else, they've always had less 4- and 5-star recruits than everybody else. Yet they've still found ways to compete. And as much as our fan base likes to talk crap about Dana Holgorsen, it was very rare that Dana Holgorsen went into a regular season game and got manhandled. Remember all the close battles? The Oklahoma got the best of him every time, but by gosh, he made it close. He was at least competitive. He could at least score with them. Even the years they went 7-5 in the Big 12. By God, teams had to score 50, 60 points to beat them. It was at least exciting to watch. This team's not even exciting. I mean, it was vanilla offense. Couldn't run the football. Couldn't block. Couldn't shed blocks on defense. Receivers wasn't getting open consistently. And when they did, Garrett was overthrowing them. I don't understand it. Somebody explain to me. Now, look, again, I'm not saying fire Neal Brown. It's way too premature for that. This team still has a Big 12 title to play for. Why won't you be watching me, Cliffhanger? What'd I say that was bad, brother? What'd I say that was bad? We just watched did you not watch this? I said I'm not saying fire anybody. But West Virginia's always been able to punch above their weight class, have they not? They need to do that again. They got to go back to the drawing board, go watch some film. Daniel says he's blaming Greg Pflugar for picking WVU to cover. Hey, I picked him to cover too, man. You know what Greg does? You know, didn't you tell me Greg's a jinx? I think you told me that on Twitter, didn't you? Maybe he was. Daniel Gigax, see the badge beside Daniel's name? He's a channel member here. Thank you, Daniel, for your support, brother. But anyway, I just, West Virginia's always punched above their weight class. And I love Neal Brown, man. And I want him to do the job. And I still think he can, but something's got to give here. So anyway, I saw a lot of mistakes tonight, in my opinion. Then also, some of the blame has to also go to the players. A lot of missed tackles, a lot of missed assignments. Like I said, guys, wasn't getting off blocks at times. Garrett overthrowing guys, receivers not catching balls. Obviously the snap. But yeah, there's enough blame to go around for sure. But man, I'll tell you, and I'll be honest, the fans weren't into the fans were loud, yeah, but it wasn't near the atmosphere I thought it would be. It was crowded. It was packed. There were a few empty seats in the student section, but not that many to start the game. But I don't know if the heat had anything to do with it or not, but the fans just weren't as rowdy as I thought they would be. But again, the team early on didn't really give the crowd a lot to get excited about. So I think that made it a little tough. Yeah, Curtis, I'm not ready to say that, man. I don't want to overreact to one game, and it might sound like what I'm doing, but I'm kind of venting here. I'm venting to you guys. I feel like that's what this channel's for. We can all get on here and kind of vent together. Let's look at the stats real quick. I know you guys probably already had time to look at this since I'm 3.5 hours late doing this, but let's do it anyway. Obviously, it's 34-12. It was scoreless after the first quarter. This was still a good football. This was still a football game at the end of the first quarter, 0-0. Second quarter, it started falling apart. But when you look at the individual stats, Drew Aller had a great game. 11 for 17, 216, 216 yards, 3 touchdowns. Bo Perbula went 1 for 1 for 19 and a touchdown. When you look at rushing, Nick Singleton had the one long touchdown run of 40 yards. He had 13 carries for 114 total. Aller ran the ball really well. He absolutely broke West Virginia's back with some of those scrambles he had on third down, third and long. The defense didn't contain him. He broke contain, and then a couple times he broke it up the middle as well. And according to Coach Brown, their eye discipline wasn't right. But again, it's a veteran football team in most cases. Now, there were a few young guys out there, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, it's a veteran football team. They shouldn't have. It's mistakes they shouldn't have been making. But Drew ran for 6 for 44 yards. Bo Perbula 3 for 25 yards. Those are the biggest ones. And then on the West Virginia side, not good. C.J. Donaldson carried it 12 times, 42 yards and a touchdown. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure that was actually a touchdown. Jaheim White, 8 carries, 33 yards. John Anderson, 3 carries, 14 yards. Garrett only ran the ball 10. Garrett ran it 10 times for only 5 yards. Nico had 2 carries for 8. A couple things there. Garrett, in my opinion, had a couple chances when he was scrambling that he had green grass in front of him and could have ran with the football and got first downs. He chose to try to throw it. One time he threw it at the receiver's, threw it into the ground at the receiver's feet. I don't know if he was throwing it away on purpose or what, but he had green grass in front of him and could have got picked up yardage with his legs. He didn't look like himself today. Like, he wasn't out there running around trying to make plays and be the old Garrett Green. I don't know if the coaching staff, now he did make a comment that they had a spy on him, so maybe that was part of the problem, which you got to tip the hat to Penn State for doing that. Or if the coaching staff had him playing too conservatively, I don't know the answer to the question. But for whatever reason, he just didn't seem like himself. I still got all the faith in the world in Garrett Green. By the way, I got to give a shout out real quick. I met Garrett Green's uncle today, and his uncle was extremely nice, came up to me, shook my hand, said he watches my show religiously, and it meant a lot to me. He told me his late father, which I think is Garrett's late grandfather, also watched my show. So hat tip to the Green family. I'm assuming it's the Green family. Anyway, Garrett Green's uncle, who I met today, hats off to you, my man. I appreciate you introducing yourself to me. I didn't get your actual name, but I appreciate your support for the show. Also, shout out to I think his name was Mr. Krager, who I met today, who said he watches my show. And then there were a couple other people I ran into who were fans of the show. I didn't get names, that they didn't give me their names, but shout out to all of you who I met today, and thank you all for your support. But anyway, Garrett didn't have his best day. He admitted it. I have faith in the young man that he'll get it back together and get back on the right track. and I think he has a really good chance to do that next week against Albany. It's a get right game for this team. They can work on some things, fix some fundamental issues they had tonight or today. Get something back in the win column and try to get back on the win. Again, everything, they can still they can still compete for a Big 12 title. Still, even win the Big 12, potentially make a playoff. Now, look, I'm not saying I'm predicting that, but it's still doable. They just have a lot of things they need to fix. Hopefully this night's an anomaly. Hopefully they got the bad game, the really bad game they usually play every year, like last year's Oklahoma game, for example. Maybe they got that out of the way tonight or today, and it's the rest of the season they'll play better. That's what I'm hoping. Look at the receiving. Penn State's leading receiver was Harrison Wallace, 5 catches, 117 yards, 117 yards. Made a couple really nice contested catches. Now, he did push off. I don't know if it was him or one of his teammates, but there was a huge push off on one of those touchdowns on Aubrey Burks. He blatantly pushed Aubrey Burks with 2 hands. But listen, the officiating did not lose this game. There were some bad calls made, but there were bad calls on both sides. But that one was blatant offensive pass interference, and the refs didn't call it. Anyway, West Virginia's receiving leading receiver was Traylon Ray, who caught 4 balls for 37 yards. Preston Fox had 2 catches for 41 yards. Cole Taylor had a couple catches, and so did Hudson Clement. Rodney Gallagher didn't play some on both sides of the ball. He had 1 catch for 8 yards. Penn State had a fumble. West Virginia had the 2 fumbles, actually 3 fumbles, lost 1 of them. And then they also had an interception thrown. I think it was Nico that threw the interception. Full disclosure, when Penn State scored their 34th point, that touchdown to put them up 34-12, my wife and I left. It had been a long day. We had to sit through that rain delay. We were tired. The game was out of hand. So, and we were trying to get a head start on traffic. We had to eat. So anyway, we left. So for anybody who thinks we're bad fans, it is what it is. Anyway, defensive stats. Josiah Trotter was the leading tackler with 10. Played a really good game. He did. Drew Aller made him look silly that one time with that stiff arm. I'm not going to lie. He stiff armed him right into the ground. And Penn State fans have been blowing my Twitter up with that because I was bragging about Josiah Trotter. But he did play a good football game tonight overall. Unfortunately, one of his bad moments got caught on video. Anthony Wilson had a good game with 9 tackles. Trey Lathan had 6. He also had a TFL. TJ Jackson had a TFL and 3 tackles. There were no sacks. That was a problem. No sacks. Only 2 TFLs on the night. Not good. Penn State's leading tackler was Kevin Winston Jr., their safety, with 12. They had one. Zane Durant had 1.5 tackles for loss. Zakee Wheatley had a half a tackle for loss. Tony Rojas had 1.5. Jalen Reed one. They also had a couple sacks. Smith Vilbert had a sack, and Zane Durant had a sack. And I noticed at the end, Wyatt Milam obviously missed the second half. Coach Brown said he was having full body cramps, which was unusual. But he was able to keep Abdul Carter in check for the most part in the first half. Now, second half, Abdul Carter was able to get in the backfield a little more, going up against the sophomore Johnny Williams. But for the most part, I felt like they kept Abdul. He only had one tackle tonight, and no sacks and no TFLs. So for the most part, Abdul Carter was kept in check, and so was Denai Dennis Sutton. So their 2 DNs were kept in check for the most part, but it was other guys who he wreaked havoc, and they basically just shut down West Virginia's run game. And then West Virginia wasn't able to beat them throwing the football for multiple reasons. One, receivers didn't get open consistently. Garrett had a few bad throws, and like I said earlier, a few drops as well. When he did hit them, a couple of times it got dropped. So now let me see if there's any more comments. Let me see. Yeah, yards per first down play. Jeff Ruff says West Virginia 3, PSU 8. Huge problem, Jeff Ruff. I noticed that too. Even when it looked like West Virginia had shut them down, you look up and 2nd and 5 or 2nd and 4 or 2nd and 3, whatever. They were getting chunks of yards. West Virginia was just getting 1-2 yards at a clip. Can't do that. Shaggy of West Virginia says we've had 2 subpar coaches in a row. The next coach needs to be a home run higher. Yeah, yards on first down. Yeah, Jeff, I'm gonna get to the team stats in a second, but you're right, man. It was definitely one-sided for sure. Blizzard Warning says Penn State fan here. It took until 2022 for Penn State to have quality depth at most position groups. It really makes a big difference. Great point. I haven't heard the status of Jaheim White. He did come back in the second half and play. So did he get hurt again late in the game that I didn't see? Or Chris, I noticed that too. I've heard the coaching staff talk about how this team really hit the weights in the offseason and how they, improved and all that. But Penn State still looked like a bigger, stronger football team. I'm not going to lie to you. And, I mentioned earlier, it's hard for me to wonder. Sometimes it makes me wonder. It's hard when you see games like this not to have doubts in your head because you're emotional about, can we compete with the big boys again? Like I mentioned earlier, like I said, I'm just being honest with you guys. I don't necessarily believe that deep down. I just, coming off an emotional loss or emotional game, it's, you have those kind of doubts, those kind of thoughts, right? But one thing I was thinking about, Penn State, I think I read they had 40 guys who were 4 and 5 stars. West Virginia has like 9. And it's hard not to think that won't make a difference. But again, like I said, in the past, West Virginia has been able to punch above their weight class. Why are they struggling to do that so much now? I don't know. Daniel says at least game 1 next year is Robert Morris. Yeah, man. I mean, it definitely doesn't hurt to have a little bit easier opponent game 1 so you don't get as beat up and you have your guys healthier for the rest of the year. Snowman 1999, that's true, but it's also the first time we've ever played 4 straight Power 5 opponents to open the season, if I'm not mistaken. So, but again, it's a fair take. But I also want to look at the other side of that. They normally don't. And 3 of those 4 have been on the road. Mr. Ed says, totally disappointed in WVU's performance today. As a Big 12 fan, I wanted WVU to beat PSU to make a statement against P2. My Houston Cougars were horrible at home against UNLV. Total rebuild. Yeah, I didn't expect Houston to be good this year. But I did think they'd beat UNLV, to be honest. Big 12 hasn't looked good so far, guys, for the most part. But we'll see. I haven't looked at all the games yet, but Joe Evans said, I bet if the stands were empty the next – no, that ain't going to have anything to do with it. I mean, it will to a degree long term, but it ain't going to help anything now. Yeah, I wanted him to run the ball more too, WV Fan 304, but again, I'm not sure the reason. I'm not sure if it was his decision making or if the coaching staff was holding him back. I'm not sure. I don't want to assume which it was because I don't know. But I would like to have seen him run the ball more. Now, the design runs they had for him weren't working. But there were a few times I felt when he was scrambling out of the pocket on pass plays when he just should have taken it and ran with it, and he didn't. Well, I mean, John, we won't know really until they play Pitt in Kansas. You know, Curtis says he sees 5 and 7 coming. I will say this, Curtis. And Shaggy, I'll answer your question in a second. Curtis, I will say this. This game reminded me a lot of the Oklahoma State game in 2022 that I attended when West Virginia got beat like 24-3 or something like that. And our offense got absolutely stifled the entire game. This game felt a lot like that. So, and that team went 5 and 7. But I don't think that Oklahoma State team is as good as the Penn State team that they played today. So I don't want to make it an apples to apples comparison. And again, I know it sounds like this season is not lost. Okay. I don't want to overblow one game. So I'm trying not to do that, but I'm also emotional still. It's just a few hours from the game being over. So if I'm overreacting, then I'm overreacting. I'm a fan. Okay. Just like y'all. So maybe I am. Somebody asked, let me go back to Shaggy's question. He says, so how many wins does NB have to get in order to keep his job? Bowl eligibility, probably. Shaggy, to be honest, he just signed an extension. West Virginia's, they can't just go forward to go fire coaches. And they care a lot. West Virginia's going to care about more than just wins and losses. They care about how he builds the program. Is he graduating his players? What's their GPA? Those kind of things matter too. And Neal Brown does good at all that stuff. He does good. He checks every single box except winning the big games, it seems. We're going to look at the team stats, and then I want to touch on Neal Brown's postgame press conference. Let me touch on Daniel's reply to that. He says with HCNB signing an extension last year, he might be there for a while. That's exactly – I agree with you, Daniel. Again, now, if he has a losing season, donors may step up and say we got to have a change. But, again, I'm not sure if West Virginia can afford to pay 2 coaches with this $20 million house settlement thing coming down the pipeline either. So we got to keep in mind this school is – West Virginia is not the wealthiest athletic department in the country. Yeah, I think he's okay, Patrick. He seemed to be. All right. Let's go look at the team stats. All right. Third down efficiency. 5-11 for Penn State, only 4-14 for West Virginia. Fourth down efficiency, 1 for 1 and 3 of 4. Total yards, West Virginia got dominated, 457 to 246. Passing dominated, 235 to 1. And even 235, West Virginia didn't give up a ton of passing yards, but it's because Penn State only threw the ball 18 times. And they were 12 of 18. They were efficient, 13 yards per pass. West Virginia only 5.6. It was dink and dunks, screen passes and whatnot. Swing passes out of the backfield, those types of things. Tunnel screens, as they call them. They weren't tunnel screens. They were screens to the tailbacks. The actual terminology is not with me at the moment. Rushing 222 to 85. West Virginia had 16 straight games, I think it was, of rushing for at least 140 yards. They had 85 yards. Horrendous. Rushing attempts, 42 for Penn State, 37 for West Virginia. Yards per rush, 5.3 to 2.3. Penalties. Penn State had more penalties, 8 for 60. West Virginia only had 1 penalty today. So they didn't commit a lot of penalties. That wasn't the reason. And you can look at the turnovers, it was 3-1. One of my keys of the game, on my pregame show with Jonathan Martin, West Virginia needed to win the turnover battle by 2. They lost it by 2. Can't have that. Just cannot have it. Time of possession was fairly even. So, again, was Penn State the better team? Yes, I think they were. But in no way, shape, or form should it have been a 22-point win in such dominant fashion. And I'll be honest, I told someone, we stopped at the convenience store on the way home. I told a lady in the store who was asking me about the game, I said, it was 34-12, but to be honest, it looked worse than that. It really did. It looked worse than 34-12. So, but Penn State wasn't running the ball as good as they felt like they could have probably. That's what some of the fans were saying on Twitter. So, had they been able to run the ball as good as they still averaged 5.3 yards a rush, which is pretty darn good. But a lot of that was Drew Aller and his scrambling, I believe. All right. So, but now let's talk about Neal Brown's presser. Make sure there's no other comments I need to get to here. Arizona, New Mexico tied at 7. Owen says West Virginia can afford it. They just wouldn't want to put forth the money. Owen, I don't know, man. Their athletic budget's only $105 million. They're only making $105 million in revenue. They got a $20 million house settlement deal probably coming down the pipeline. They're one of the bottom in the Big 12 in revenue already, man. So I'm not sure if they can or not. Shaggy says this game showed me we will never be a top-tier team under NB. If WVU is okay with that, then we are in for a long haul of mediocrity. Yeah, I want to believe you're wrong, Shaggy. But after this game, like I said, I'm trying not to let my emotions cloud my judgment here. So it ain't time to move on from Neal Brown yet. It's too early for that, in my opinion. It's one game. We don't want to overreact to one game. If they can right the ship, play well in the Big 12, make it to Arlington in the Big 12 title game, we might be having a whole different conversation. If they beat Albany, then beat Pitt, then beat Kansas, and we're sitting here in a month at 3-1, going into a bye week, the tone will be completely different around Morgantown. I can tell you. At least it will be for me. So like I said, I don't want to overreact to one game, but man, it would be really nice to be able to compete. And the bad thing about this was it was on a national stage. Fox Big Noon Kickoff was there. Brett Yormark, I think, was there. Pat McAfee show was in town yesterday. So a lot of eyeballs were on this game and how West Virginia would do. We're representing the Big 12. The Big 12 was kind of counting on West Virginia to do well in this game. What'd they do? They went out and they laid an egg. And at some point, they've got to do better. You know what I mean? Against these really big-time opponents, they've got to start winning some of these games, man. All right. Patrick says all the season goals. Absolutely. Great point. It is tough, Blizzard Warning, but they've always been able to do it in the past. But again, that was also back when they played in a regional conference. I don't know if being in a Big 12 hurts West Virginia or not. It's hard to say. It's hard to say it doesn't because they've not really had the same levels of success since they went there outside of a couple of seasons. So maybe it has. I don't know, but I still don't want to use that as an excuse. Jeff says too many gold and blue collar glasses in this chat for me. See. Texas Tech and OT against the Cupcake. Man, Big 12's not looking great, y'all. Man alive. All right, let's look at – I want to talk about Neal Brown's press conference. I was really a little agitated at the fact that he talked way too much about officiating in this game. Were there a couple calls that didn't go West Virginia's way? Absolutely. Were the refs good in this game? No, they were not. There was calls missed. There were replays missed. But West Virginia also had a couple calls go their way. C.J. Donaldson, I don't think got in the end zone on that touchdown. I'll be honest with you. There was also a first down. I think it was where West Virginia got a really good spot on that they shouldn't have. Now, I know there was another spot that Coach Brown and even Garrett talked about where Garrett thought he got the first down on that tush-push play, and he probably did. And then I know Coach Brown talked about the push-off on what he thought was OPI, and then there was a play in the end zone where he thought the receiver dropped the ball. But again, there were bad calls on both sides. And for Neal Brown to mention officiating 4 or 5 times in his post-game presser, to me, I did not like that, man. Um, I just he did take ownership and took some accountability for what happened, but there always seems to be a but after it. You know what I mean? I don't know. It just, and again, it's a bad time to put a coach in front of a microphone. He's irritated. He's mad. He's agitated. He's angry. He's sad. I mean, you know, every emotion in a book, right? Every negative emotion out there, he's feeling it. So obviously he's going to be a little bit short with the media. He's going to be a little bit grumpy. Probably not going to get the truth. You know, you're going to get more of an emotional response more so than a well thought out response. But at the same time, that's part of the job. And they get paid a lot of money. So they could, you know, they didn't be more measured on what they say. And I felt like he talked way too much about officiating. It sounded like excuses a little bit to me. And again, I like Neal Brown. I'm not bashing him right now. I felt like he and his staff made mistakes in this game tonight. But the players also didn't do their job. So it went both ways. But I was not happy with how he handled the post-game press conference. I just got to be honest about that. I felt like like I said, too much talk about the officiating. He needed to just say, you know, look, there were some calls I didn't agree with, you know, but officiating didn't cost us the game, and leave it alone, you know. And he didn't do that. He just kept bringing it up, and that was really irritating to me. You got your tail kicked, own it, take accountability for it, and move on. You know what I mean? Don't talk about the officiating for about 25% of your press conference. And I'm probably exaggerating, but that's what it felt like. So anyway, the only silver lining is Virginia Tech got beat by Vanderbilt today. That makes me smile. At least West Virginia didn't lose to Vanderbilt. But I got more on that in another video I'm planning for the next couple days. But so I don't want to give away too much. But I guess if there is a positive from today, that's it. Paul Gee says, refs as usual, screw WVU plus not game with scrap to help Penn State. WVU always gets screwed from a rigged system just like they do in politics and NFL. I don't necessarily agree with all of that, Paul. Like I said, there were bad calls on both sides. West Virginia had less penalties than Penn State did tonight or today. The big noon kickoff deal is not that's the network who makes that decision. They wanted that game at noon for whatever reason. Fox has the Big Ten. It was a Big Ten. Well, they also have the Big 12. Never mind, since it was a Big 12 home game. But my point is, Fox picked it, and they wanted it at noon. Not sure why. I don't think it's because they don't like West Virginia. If West Virginia starts winning again and starts playing exciting football again, they'll get the good slots. West Virginia got a lot of primetime games. Heck, they had a lot of primetime games last year, to be honest with you. They had 3 or 4 primetime games last year. And then back during Dana's era, they were playing at night a lot. During Rich Rod's era, they were playing at night a lot because they played exciting football and they were winning games. People wanted to watch West Virginia. They've got to get back to that. College don't really fire, but they will fine them. Yes, college coaches will get fined, and it wouldn't surprise me if Neal at least gets reprimanded. He probably went further tonight than he probably should have. He was complaining more about the replay officials than he were the officials on the field because he wasn't happy with the touchdown at the end of the first half. He said the receiver was bobbling the ball when he went to the ground or something, but they never went to replay. And he said they're supposed to on plays like that. And that's what he was irritated by. And he was like, you know, if they're not going to use it, why have it, you know? And they should never get it wrong. He also felt like they got it wrong on the Garrett on the first down where they didn't give the Garrett the first down. He didn't even mention the time that they ran into the kicker, the punter, and it didn't get called. But again, There were bad calls or missed calls, but that's not the reason they lost. They lost the game because they got flat out manhandled on the line of scrimmage and at most positions. They got flat out manhandled by a better, bigger, faster football team who was more ready, more mentally prepared, more locked in, and the moment wasn't too big for them. It almost seemed like today the moment was too big for this team. And I hate to say it, but it had that feel to it. As a fan sitting in the bleachers, that's the feel I had. It felt like it was the moment they couldn't handle the moment. And just being honest. I know there's families of players and stuff that watch the game. I love them, but I gotta speak my heart here. I know the team can play much better, and I have faith that they will. But man, today it just wasn't it. Just wasn't it. Daniel, great point, my man. He says the Big Noon is the main Big Ten window on Fox broadcast, and the networks pay the bills. Patrick says the tush push was a terrible play call at the time. Put your playmakers in space there. That's fair. Yep, we played bad AML cast for sure. Mountaineer guy, I think I missed your first comment. He said, Texas Tech and Abilene Christian are tied 52-52. Just throw that out there. West Virginia might be okay in the Big 12, but I'm still very unhappy with the performance today. Yes, Mountaineer guy. Like I said earlier, the season is not lost. I don't want to come on here and make it seem that way. They still have their goals ahead of them. Penn State is a really, really good football team. May have a chance to win the Big Ten. Will probably make the playoff. May even have a chance to play for a national title. They might be that good. So, the sun's going to come up tomorrow. I'm healthy. My family's healthy. My daughter's coming in from college tonight. I get to spend a weekend with her, so all is not lost. Life is still good. But I wanted to get on here and rant a little bit, kind of pour my heart out a little bit about what I saw today, and also let you guys do the same in the chat room as well. WVU needs linebackers to stop the run. They shouldn't be able to run it right down the middle. But Josiah Trotter actually played pretty well today. Neal said he was probably the best player on the field today. He actually said him, Anthony Wilson, and Wyatt Milam were the only three today that played well. I'll be honest. I thought our D-line got pretty much manhandled today. I was not happy with how they played at all. Patrick, after the weather delay, probably about half the fans. I will tell you this. My wife and I left part of the way through the fourth quarter when it was 34-12, when it first got 30, when they scored that touchdown to make it 34-12. My wife and I decided to leave and try to get a head start on traffic, and she was hungry. We wanted to go eat, and we didn't want to pay stadium prices. So we went ahead and left. And the blue lot was all pretty much cleared out by then. So if that tells you anything. The student section was pretty much cleared out, and the blue lot was pretty much cleared out by the time we left in the fourth quarter. I still love my team too, Chris. I'll be watching them next week. I still have tickets to 2 more games I'll likely go to, unless it goes completely downhill, and I'll still plan on going to those 2 games. I'll still watch every weekend. Even if I'm not home during the game, I'll probably DVR it and watch it later or whatever. I still love my team, but I host a show, so I've got to get on here and be honest and try to speak my mind. Like I said, I try not to be. I'm not calling for anybody's job. I'm not, saying any players need to be benched right now. It was just a bad performance overall. The whole team, the whole staff, everybody needs to own it, and they will. They will. When they have their meetings, they're all going to. I'm sure they'll all own their mistakes. They'll own their bad play, and then they'll do what they can to fix it. And I have faith that they will. We just got to wait a couple. Now, next week against Albany, again, it's a game for them to kind of put this week behind them, work on fundamentals, win a game you're supposed to win, hopefully get some of your backups some playing time, get some guys healthy that might be banged up. if James banged up, maybe don't play him as much, whatever. And then you go into Pitt the following week, and you darn sure better win that one. And you better start off Big 12 play with a win over Kansas to try to get the fan. If you do that, if you win the next 3, I think they'll get the fan base back on their side and turn this thing around. And we can put this, and everybody will forget that this night happened or this day happened. You know what I mean? We're fans. We're fickle. We jump on the bandwagon one day and we're off the next. That's how we are. Fan is short for fanatic. I'm no different than you all. A lot of people expect me to be more like a member of the media, and I try to be, but at the same time, I'm also a fan. And it would be disingenuous of me to get on here and act like I'm not a fan, because I am. And since I'm not affiliated with any media, quote unquote, professional media people, I'm not affiliated with 24/7 Sports or Rivals or whoever. And I love those guys. Don't get me wrong. I follow all their stuff. They can't be biased. They have to be more objective. I don't have to be objective. I try to be as much as possible, but I also try to call a spade a spade. And I just, I want to get on here and speak my mind. I feel like that's what differentiates folks like myself from the traditional media, is we can get on here and be a little bit more real. They're not allowed to do that. I mean, that's their job. They can't do. They can't be too they can't be too subjective, or they get in trouble. I can't get in trouble. I work for myself. But anyway, I hope you guys understand. Got another PSU fan here. He says, found you before last year's game and kept watching since. You put on a good. Hey, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I've taken a lot of crap from some of your fellow Penn State fans on Twitter, man. It's been kind of rough the last couple hours. I ain't gonna lie. But I will say I met several Penn State fans at the game. Everybody was super nice that I met. I try to be nice to the ones I met. I try to welcome them to the game and whatnot. But man, on Twitter, I have been taking a beating. And of course, some of it's probably deserved. I was talking a little bit of trash. It was all in fun, but I did talk a little bit of trash before the game, not going to lie, because I drank the Kool-Aid. I thought this team was going to come in here and be real. I thought it was going to be a really good game, really exciting game. Beginning of the game, I was pumped up, man. I had butterflies. I was juiced. That all went out the window pretty quick. But anyway. All right. Tim, thank you, brother. Appreciate you. I don't know why I went into that rant about that. I was just kind of, I'm trying to be cognizant, I don't want to, I understand there are people that watch my show, who might be on the team, who might be family of people on the team. So and I get that, but I feel like I have to be honest. Cardinal says, you remind me of Quincy Carrier when it comes to your coverage of WU. You know your stuff about this team, and you can cover this team in depth without having to worry about TV stuff. And Alan says $80. Wow. Alan, what did I miss, man? What are you talking about? Appreciate that compliment, Cardinal. Oh, I see. WVU games used to be $40 for a good seat. Big East days, you can't find a ticket under $80 now. They have destroyed college football, and the rich and students can go to games. Okay, Paul, I see what you're saying. Now I understand the $80 comment by Alan. Makes sense. Yeah, I paid good money for this ticket. That's another reason I was aggravated. I spent the night in a hotel room. Paid pretty good money for this ticket. Sitting an hour and a half rain delay, whatever it was, and had to watch that. And it's frustrating. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's frustrating. I hate to complain because I know some people aren't able to go to games, and I am. I'm blessed to be able to go, so I don't like to complain about it. But the older I get, the more I enjoy sitting on my couch. And sometimes I'll sit in the game and I'm thinking, man, I could have watched this from home on my couch, save myself a lot of money, and probably not be as aggravated. But anyway. But I can't help myself. I'm right back doing it again the next game because I just can't stay away. I just love them too much, man. Yeah, I'm sure Michigan, Ohio State is expensive. Zono 737 says, I didn't expect West Virginia to win, but this was an absolutely disappointing game as a WVU fan. Let's hope they can get between 7 and 10 wins. I agree with you, and I think they can still. I still think 8 win. I predicted 8 and 4. I still think that's doable. Again, I don't want to overreact to one game here, but I am concerned about some things. I'm hoping this game was an anomaly. They seem to have one game a year where they just lay a flat out egg, and this maybe they got it over with in the first game of the season, and the rest of the season they'll play well. That's what I'm hoping here. And we might look back on this. Maybe we look back on this game tonight and say, hey, this is the night West Virginia. Sometimes losses can turn into positives, and they use it as a springboard. Maybe that's what happens here on this game. Maybe West Virginia takes this loss, looks themselves in the mirror, fixes what they need to fix, gets their mind right, and then they go out and have a really good season. That can happen. I've seen it happen before. Exactly, Tanner. Let it serve as a wake-up call to the boys and coaches. Absolutely. And I think it can. So that's what I'm going to leave with tonight. Again, I want to give a shout-out to my sponsor, Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner, your personal injury and medical malpractice attorney in West Virginia and Virginia. Check them out at yourlawyeryourvoice.com if you need an attorney for that. If you or a family member has been injured in a car accident, or God forbid if a family member has died or had that also happen in a medical malpractice situation, reach out to them. You can also call 1-800-999-HURT, I think is the number. Again, Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner, attorneys at law. All right. Anyway, thank you all for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate your support. Got a lot of people on here between X and YouTube, man. Really big crowd. I really appreciate everybody's support. Thank you. Have a top shelf weekend, the rest of your weekend. Enjoy your Labor Day. For those of you who have to work, enjoy your extra day off this weekend. If you get it, try to, Mountaineer fans, try to get over this loss best you can. Let's move on and get ready for Albany next week. I'll be out with more content in the next couple days. Have a top shelf night, have a top shelf weekend, and Q, even though we lost, I'm never going to stop saying it. Q Country Roads. I don't either, John.